So I think what we learned is that if Savannah starts talking slower, that means she's boring herself. So be good if she's talking quickly.
Hey, and just to give Savannah some kudos before we jump into this, and I apologize, my internet speed's going to slow me down and make me robotic or choppy, but Savannah has gotten to roll out a lot of this kind of thing for several of our biggest clients. So I think what she brings as we talk about up-leveling customer support and customer experience and customer journey is real world experience of we've learned some things the hard way. We've seen some clients do things some messy ways, and we're trying to keep it not a circus, right? You don't want to create the experience, like sell people on a bunch of your stuff and then make the customer journey a circus. So that's what we're trying to beat down today. Savannah knows plenty about managing clients that sometimes can make it a circus. And so she's got some great stuff to share today.
Awesome. So some of the things we're going to talk about live chat. We're going to talk about your knowledge base. We're going to talk about using bots and automations. And then we're going to talk about a super cool way that Taryn has worked out how to track what your customer support team is doing sales-wise. So everybody starts out with email support. That's just, that's just typical. Someone emails in, you email back, and then you eventually make your way up to support ticketing, which is what we talked about the last time we talked about customer support. So then the kind of scary one that that people don't want to dip their toe in, and I understand, is live chat. And so you might be getting to a certain point where your team is dealing with a lot of volume. You're thinking that you need to add more employees, and you're just wondering if live chat might be better for your team, a good addition. And there's a few things to keep in mind. So if your ticket volume is just going off the charts, but you're noticing that it's you're spending so much time answering emails with things that really don't need a ton of back and forth. If you can just give a simple instant response, you don't want to have to be doing the email thing back and forth when you could just have a conversation. So that's something to keep in mind with your team as well, because if they're having to answer a lot of small questions a bajillion times, there are ways in your ticketing system to mass answer things, but it might make their lives a lot easier if they could just answer their customers in real time. Another thing to keep in mind is if you think your customers have a lot of offer questions, maybe your offer is a little bit complicated and you have different levels, like if you have like a different deal going on in the back end, or it's just a more complicated product or service that you're offering. So someone wants to really dig deep and ask some questions before they make a big investment. That's something that live chat can be nice, because if someone is having to come into a support ticket, at that point, they're looking at something, they might be excited about it. They email in if it's at 10 o'clock, and well, you probably don't have live chat at 10 o'clock at night anyway, but it's at, a random, even if it's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they send in an email. If your team doesn't get back to them until that evening or the following day, by then they have navigated away from that sales page. They're not hot to trot anymore. And you might have lost the sale. So that's where live chat is really nice as well. And then, do your customers need consistent office hours? So if in general, what you're offering is slightly more complicated, if they need more support, and this also kind of comes into play with the size of your team. But some customer bases, it really serves them well to know that they can get a hold of your team between 8 to 6. And a lot of us are working remotely. And so you might have people who are working in the Philippines or working in New York and then working in California. And so that's something that you have to kind of think about if you want to have chat open 24/7, if you want people answering emails whenever they can, or if you want to give your customers a set expectation that they know that they can come to your company, get the support that they need for their product between a certain window, and they're going to get lightning fast responses.
Now, when you rolled this out for 100X previously, were there some metrics tied to tracking, making sure the chat was worth it over just tickets? Because it probably also resulted in more hours as people are then dedicated to a desk for a certain time so that chat can stay open.
It did definitely result in more hours and a little bit more. I think that the main client that we did this for, they ended up hiring an extra team member to help. And so it definitely was a bigger investment. But part of it was that they were about to roll out a really high ticket product at the tail end of a live event. And so they knew that this was going to be a huge launch. They knew that it was kind of complicated and their existing customer base was not going to right off the bat understand exactly what it was that they were offering. And so they wanted to have that real-time support to make sure that customers could get their answer right there and pull the trigger on the sale, like while they were looking at the funnel. And so a huge part that took into play with this was most support systems that offer chat have the ability to use a widget, and you use that widget on the sales page. And so they don't even have to navigate somewhere else for help. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I have an example, but yeah, widgets plus chat close some sales. It's a great tool.
And I think too, Savannah, wasn't some of the decision around what Taryn was saying with the metrics is they were getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tickets that were like it, especially around event times where it was just, and then everybody knows about tickets, they turn into threads. You know, it's not like you say one thing, somebody, and they're like, oh, thanks for your answer. That was great. You know, it's like they say, oh, and actually, could you check on, I think I had a balance on that one other product. Could I maybe apply this balance towards this? And then it turns into a 15 email thread that never goes away and just like continues to stack. And so I think that was some of it too, right? It was just, at what point do you say, no, the crazy's got to stop, right? And that's when they moved to more of a chat model as well.
If you're traveling at like over 100 emails open, support emails open on a team of 5 or less on a constant basis, you're probably ready to move to chat, because you probably don't need to have that many things just kind of lingering in your inbox. No one likes to come into an inbox and see that much messages.
That's good. Thanks, Vanna.
So another really important factor with your support team that I think a lot of people, a lot of companies don't utilize, and I don't think they realize how powerful it is in arming your customers to self-serve and your staff to self-serve, is a really thorough FAQ for both your customers, so in external, and for your employees, internal. So if you have a lot of chatter back and forth, people coming into your office and asking questions, it's like, man, this is such a basic thing, you should know this, or even some more complicated things, but it's things that come up on a daily basis. Knowledge base can just cut that right off. And then same thing with customers. You might have a customer coming in that's asking the price of a product, and you might get that really often if it's not, because maybe it's something that you don't have right out on a sales page, or it's something that you're not offering at the moment. You can put that information in an FAQ, and then the customer can go serve themselves and then take less time from your customer support team. Something that's important is to keep one platform, kind of like what we talked about with our communications best practices, keeping one platform for your customers to go in for support. So if you already have a spot that they are going to submit a request for help, whether it be for chat or through email, through a ticket, you want to have your knowledge base on that same site, that same page. You don't want to be sending them all over the place, especially if it takes them away from your, if you have a sales page that you're trying to keep them close to. So that's another thing we'll get to with widgets, is that widgets often tie your knowledge base in. And so they're pulling information from that existing, and they're not having to navigate away to another page. And then same thing for team. It's just common knowledge. If you're sending your team to a bunch of different platforms and they're things that they're not familiar with, they're probably not going to use it. And then they're going to come at you guys for more help. So whatever platform that people are generally using for communication, if you can somehow work the FAQ into that, then you have a much higher chance that they're going to utilize that and then not be banging down the doors to get help from everyone on the team. And then part of that is using keywords. You can use keywords at some knowledge bases actually have a spot for keywords and tags, which is wonderful. Some don't. For example, Zendesk doesn't, but there's a tricky way that you can do it, where just at the bottom of your article, just type in the slew of keywords that you want to pull up in a search. So if you're dealing with my credit card didn't go through. If that's the FAQ item, you might have a line of text at the bottom that says credit card, debit, bank, refund, billing. Just put a slew of keywords that are all tied to that, so that you know that that article will come up if the customer asks it in a different kind of phrasing.
It's like the original hashtag, right? You
Yes.
just enter just a slew of random text that somebody might reference to find this question.
Hashtag original hashtag. I love it. I say too, remember, as we're talking about this kind of stuff, guys, whether it's, we're talking about this, I feel like very similarly when we talked about instant messaging with teams or project management tools with teams, is what we're trying to control is the flood, right? You can't always control the flood and when it's going to come, but what you can control is where you're going to, push the water once the floods do come. And the analogy I always gives, one of my daughters moved down to Arizona, and as we're moving down there, they got this like torrential rain. I had never been to Arizona during a rainy season, and they get the floods that hit the streets, but Arizona is ready for it because they always have floods like that, and they control it with their sewer system. They just know where to push the water. And that's all we're doing with this kind of thing is, you're going to get a flood. Live events, new offer, some of the pain around that. Create the channels that you want people to, you direct the water, direct it with some intention rather than just feeling the pain every single time you get a flood. Like, let's direct some water by creating channels that people can self-serve themselves with a knowledge base, or like we're saying with chat, like how can we direct them best?
I would not expect Arizona to be a place that gets lots of flooding rains.
No, it's crazy. And it's like, it can be the hottest day, and then all of a sudden like thunderclouds roll in and it dumps, and it's like flash floods. And it's like, it was the craziest thing, Savannah, because I got one of those alerts that come up on my phone, and it's like, pull off to the side of the highway, stay in your car, don't die. Like something like super cryptic. And I'm like, where the hell did I just move my kid? Like, I've never seen an alert come up like that on my phone. So it was crazy.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Oops. Come on now. I broke my slideshow, guys.
Sad.
Okay. Okay. So, a super handy tool in any customer service thing that is like, it's the part that we all look forward to, is when you can start using triggers and automations to make your customer support system work even better. So, moving in chat, moving in guide, you're kind of expanding your team. Once you start working in triggers and automations, it just takes so much heat off of your team, and it can let everyone kind of and start working on other things, so they're not just constantly putting out fires. So macros, that's a common word that we throw around, and basically it just means scripted on brand responses. And pretty much every support system doing emails and tickets is going to have this type of setup. Even if you're still in the phase of using an email inbox, there's actually like plugins that you can use where you actually are using hashtags and keywords that once you type those in, it'll just autofill a response for you. Of course, that's going to be that's going to be a pretty manual way to do it. You can, create a Google sheet that has like a menu for your team on what scripted responses to use and stuff. But if you're using a software that is handling your tickets, cases, emails, whatever you call them, then that's going to have a more automatic way that it's done, and it's going to be a lot easier on your team. And I highly recommend them, because if someone is refusing a refund request or something like that, things like that can get really touchy, and you want to make sure that, ideally your customer service team is going to be very tactful, but everyone has bad days and you just never know. So it's just nice to have these canned responses that that they're going to be on brand. They're going to put in keywords that you want. They might have links sometimes for if someone's requesting something free, then you have a pre-built macro that says, so sorry, we love our team, or we love our crowd, but we don't give free product at this caliber. However, we do have a wonderful podcast. You can click this link here and go there, and then the link's already built in, everything's already set up, and then it takes 3 seconds for your team member to reply to them. Triggers, again, that's kind
with
of
the macros too. That also helps on like content distribution or information distribution. Like you could have possibly different chat reps telling people different things.
Right.
Yeah, especially like for offers that are more convoluted. If you have different price
Sales
levels,
pages. Yeah.
it can get really messy. And so if someone misunderstands the context for a certain price level, then yeah, you might accidentally have someone just giving out the wrong information, or the customer misunderstanding what the agent meant. So if the agents are all responding with the exact same response, then you don't have to worry about that so bad.
And I think too, especially if you're working with multiple agents that might be dealing with however that turns out on the back end, like if something needs to escalate into a ticket, like maybe you hit a stopping point and the chat can't continue because this agent doesn't have those answers, escalates it to a ticket. It's really nice to know how did this origin and where did this start and what was the data that was brought from at the beginning. That way they're not having to just cryptically pull apart where did they find that link and why did they drop that link here and how does that have any relevance with what this person is asking. So I think to Taryn's point, all of us hate that anxiety, right? Somebody needs something. Usually it's one of our bosses or one of our clients. They ask us for something and we're like, holy hell, where's that link at? And it's real time and you're trying to find it and you don't know where it's at and you're grabbing and then maybe you're dropping something and it's the wrong thing. And then they have to tell you it's the wrong thing. Like avoid all that, like scripted on brand responses where the links are embedded, like is a dream. Hashtag this, drop it in, done. Like let's take the anxiety out of the room. We're going to be in enough of those kind of situations on as it is in the day-to-day. Make these kinds of ones easy.
Yep. Also, if you're using overseas like virtual assistant support or just backup support, macros are lovely because English might not be someone's first language, and so they're doing their best. But if they're having to type their own responses, someone can usually tell, and people do get really judgy about. And I'm not judging someone for being judgy on that, because I get judgy if I get kind of broken English responses. And so if your team can use these macros, then everything can be as eloquent as you need it to be. So triggers, that's another kind of branded. I'm using mostly Zendesk verbiage because that is typically what our clients end up going with after we review the options. So triggers is something that's specifically mentioned in Zendesk, but it's basically it's an automation. And so what you can do is you can actually set up your system to recognize certain context, either through a subject line, through maybe there's like a key phrase or sentence that is in an email. And you can set your system up to automatically respond with that macro, to automatically assign it to a certain employee, to set it at a certain priority. So for example, for Kimberly's team, we actually just set up a cool one that if the internal team needs to get something done by the customer support team, all they got to do is type into the subject line internal team in caps. And then we set that up so that the system recognizes that and it automatically sets that to an urgent priority. And we set up the sorting so that it just pushes it right to the top of the list so that customer experience sees that first, so they can make sure that they get any urgent requests from team done like at the start of their day while they're looking at their tickets. So that's really cool.
By the way,
what?
I said thank you for doing that. By the way,
You're welcome. The auto macroing is can be really nice too if you have people that are coming in and asking about an event that's coming up and it's going to be the same response over and over again. Then you can set it up to automatically respond with that reply. So what you do is you basically just tell it. It works better if it's going to be like an automated message coming in as far as comment text, because you want to make sure that that sentence is going to be the same. So it takes a little bit of training with your customers and your internal team if it's not an automated response. But an example of an automated response where this comes in handy is like if you are using the same support email across like all of your services. And so say you use that support email for something to do with like your WordPress site where you hold your courses. If you get a lot of email responses from automated things from WordPress, then that's like, this customer changed their password, this customer opted in, this customer opted in, and you get 700 of those a day. Obviously, customer support team doesn't need to see those. And you could create another email and pay for another email suite to have that go to, or you could set up a trigger and have it recognize that subject line and then just tell it that it needs to automatically mark that as resolved. And then that'll just be filed away. Team doesn't have to look at it. And then you don't have to worry about paying for an extra seat for something. Then there is the lovely addition of bots. So there's like a couple different levels of bots. Most things that have widgets, support systems that have widgets. That was a fun sound.
That was the wizard Terran.
Most things that have widgets are going to be pre-programmed with your FAQ on the backside of it. Because ideally your FAQ, your chat, and your support ticket system are all one and the same. And so it's not a bot per se, but it's somewhere where a customer is going to start typing in what their question is. And the widget is going to say, did you mean this? And it's going to give them articles that hopefully help them self-serve before they end up having to take your agent's time. Then there's fancy bots that like one of our clients uses, that there's a team of people that are taking a list of questions and plugging in the answers on the back end. So the person can actually have like a conversation. And I actually brought up.
Yeah, show and tell. We're going to do a phone. We're going to do a tour.
Do a show and tell. Brought up a couple examples of sites that are using this pretty well. So this is Jenna Kutcher. She's one of my faves. And this is just one of her items that she sells. It's her Pinterest lab. So she teaches people how to use Pinterest for your business to convert sales. And something that I thought was interesting is that someone as top tier big as Jenna Kutcher actually does not use chat. I found that super interesting. I guess it just depends on like the type of sales that you have. I guess most of her sales are pretty straightforward. Like you're buying pre-made things. It's kind of usually a one-off, not a whole lot of like one-on-one training. But as you can see on this page, if you're on here and you're like, man, I think that I like this, but I just have a couple of questions before I go in. You can see in the bottom corner here, there's this little button that says need help. And there's a widget. And so her widget, she uses something called Team Support, which is a slightly newer one, which I thought was interesting. I looked at it compared to Zendesk, pretty much similar features. It almost looked like it was like a combination of Zendesk and Salesforce, like very robust, a little bit more expensive, but it looks like they have like a lot of really cool reporting and stuff. Anyway, so they just have you put in an email. And you email them and then one of their team will respond. So, you don't have to have chat to have a widget. It's just a line of coding that you have your site guy put into the sales page so that they have that option right there. So you can ask for help. I feel like everybody should have that on a sales page. It's just making sure that your customers don't have to go somewhere else. Aaron, did you have something to add on that? Looks like you
just yep. That's,
Yep.
Yeah.
So then the next thing I wanted to show you guys was actually
look at this cool brand. This is a pretty cool brand. This is
Oh, who's that?
Yeah, there she is. She's like, I wasn't on video before this, but now I'm gonna come on video now that you're gonna talk about my brand.
Justin brought me tacos and they're warm. I mean, what am I supposed to do?
Listen, you've been eating tacos a lot lately. This is like the third time this week you've talked about eating tacos that I have reference to.
I'm not pregnant.
Okay, that's great. That's fine. I just didn't know they did tacos in Louisiana, but that's awesome.
They're not legit, but okay, go ahead. Brand
Sorry,
family
Savannah, go.
So this is an example of a great FAQ. And so this is for the Rainmaker family. And I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like to have the search option and what it looks like to have keywords plugged in. So this is just their support page. I'm going to go right here to the search bar and I'm just going to type in billing. Oh no.
Yeah, I was going to say, Savannah, do you ever get nervous on when you start typing stuff in? You're like, I hope this works.
I can't remember all the
I set this
things that
one up.
we
Since
put in.
Since I built it, I hope this is gonna work right.
Because they don't have like a big like live offer kind of
I get
thing.
it. I get it. Go. Show me
So
something
let's
else.
see. We're gonna do there. So, so this is a keyword that is in these, and so it just you can see that it went through and it found every article that has the word challenge in it. And so this is obviously not on a widget. This is on the support page itself, but they have the links to their support page in various offers. I believe they also have it on directly on their website, so that if you're looking at the website, you just can click support and it'll take you over here. And then probably within their Facebook group as well. And then from there, they can also submit a request. So the customer is still on the same page for anything that they need help with. So they're not having to go a bunch of different places to get their answer. So that's a good thing. The last one that I wanted to show you guys was the use of a bot. I will preface this with saying that the BoxyCharm bot, which is what this is, specifically actually annoys me really bad, but that's because they make it really hard to talk to a person, and that is frustrating. So it's handy that if you are setting in bot service, you have some kind of fail-safe in there. I guess you have to decide how easy or difficult you want it to be for your customers to talk to a person. But you're going to have happier customers if you let them say, talk to a person, and they get to talk to a person. So you decide how you want to do that. But same thing, this just on their main page, they had the little question mark in the corner, you turn it on, it has these pre-plugged in responses. I will also say that these cute little pre-done responses, you can set up your chat to do that as well with a trigger. If you, again, like kind of like the macros thing, if you want everyone greeting your customer in a very specific way, if you want to move in some branding, maybe you want to welcome your customer with a link to something or let them know that you have like an offer or a challenge going, you can set that up to be the intro as soon as that customer clicks on that chat bubble before your agent even starts talking to them. So that's pretty cool too. So you can see right in that they give you a few of their FAQ items, so you can go right to an article because they really don't want you talking to a person. But I'm going to say, I
can second this. I've also had a tremendous amount of issues with this that I usually just cancel, and then my friends will drag me back into it, and it's just a
I have quit and rejoined BoxyCharm, I think 4 times.
yeah.
And yeah, it's so it's, the bot can't be great, but you definitely be attentive to your customers. I know that BoxyCharm specifically, like if you go onto their Instagram, like people call out this bot like by name. So now I feel bad that I gave you guys this example because I guess it's an example of not how to run your bot.
That's okay.
But
it is a great example of a bot. Like this is botting 101. Like if
yes.
you want an example of a bot, this is botting 101.
But you got to listen to your customers. And if you have, like, if someone looks at your Instagram feed and you're talking about how cool your products are, and then people are talking about how much your bot sucks, like you need to have your programmer go in and work on your bot to give better answers, or you need to do something with your customer support team. Cause I think that it probably boils more down to like, I think they maybe don't have enough people in their customer support team. And so it just takes a really long time to actually get answers. So, you know, all that cost versus benefit kind of thing. But
Savannah, I feel like you've got to work though. I do think that RJ's solutions and some different things that were rolled out for Pedro, like I think that there have been some good examples of where bots can triage through a bunch of pain in a very like educated way. Is that more like that's a deeper level bot than this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So what's nice about that bot is that, yeah, like it's a small team and it's a team that cares. And so they are taking customer feedback, like keeping a really good eye on it, working directly with the customer experience team on pain points and making sure that they come up with solutions for what the customer is feeling. And so a lot of the time it ends up being a problem of context. If a customer is asking for something, but they're asking for it in a slightly different way than another customer might ask. And so it's a different way than the bot has it programmed in. The bot's going to say, I don't have an answer to that. And in this case, where they're trying to not let you talk to a support person, you might go 50 times saying, I don't know what you're asking for, versus with RJ's bot, usually once it does it a couple times, it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to let you talk to a person. It might even only be one time. So pretty good
It's a
about that.
problem with nomenclature, isn't it?
Yes, you did it. Anytime you can work it in, you work it in for me. I love it. My
Okay.
favorite word, guys. If any of you on any call that we're on in the future can work in the word nomenclature, you just know you've made my day. Thank you, Taryn Trainer.
Well, it's true though. It is. It's exactly what Savannah's describing.
So context is important, and yeah. And so I think with BoxyCharm, once you stump the bot so many times, I don't even know if they put you, I don't know if they put you to a person right away. They might direct you to email. They might go directly
They
from
do.
Box
They
email,
do. They direct you to email after so many.
and then they'll take 2 weeks to respond to you.
Nicole's so bitter. She's like, let me tell you what they do. Let me tell you how this goes down. I've wanted to burn
Let me
them
tell you.
down before.
When
I've sent
BoxyCharm
so
is
many
good,
angry emails. No,
real
no.
good, but yeah.
I will say too, some of the cool thing about when you do commit to a bot, if you do use the right service, and obviously, we've talked about the right way and the wrong ways. I will say it's been cool to watch some of the stuff that RJ has created. And I don't want to steal your thunder, Svan, if you're going to go into this deeper downstream. But I think that it's nice because I think where we started with RJ when the engagement with Pedro Adeo happened was it was creating bots around courses. So it's getting people to consume your content. You're going through a challenge. You want them to, maybe you've escalated them to a VIP experience. You've given them some new content. You want to know that they're consuming the content. And really the whole end goal of that is you're going to offer them a purchase at the end of this challenge. And the more engaged they are, the more likely they're going to take the offer at the end. So you want high engagement. So RJ created a bot that was taking people through the homework assignments that were being given them, because we realized we would get better traction and higher percentage of people getting through the homework that was given if a bot would nurture them through. But then the beauty of that is once you start committing to bot development like that, it makes a rollout into something like this, where there's like chat-based bot, or like you're already starting to deal with so much data, like you're trying to, Savannah literally has a request in Slack of feed the bot. And it's like that's literally what you're doing. You're giving it more and more and more intel. So it's just becoming smarter and smarter every iteration. So I'd say as you're thinking through bots, maybe the question should be, how are we thinking about using bots? Right now, we're talking about a very specific customer experience journey utilizing bots, but maybe the question should be bigger picture of, could we use the bots some different ways? And the whole way through, we're making every part of the bot smarter because we're giving it more and more data. I know, Taryn, you were probably pretty involved at the beginning stages of that too.
Yeah, and there's a good thing to know is we're talking about like two different types of bots here. There's the simple bot, which is basically an auto responder based on keywords. It's going to give the same response no matter who you are. Yeah. You're just typing in words, it's pulling up articles. That's basically a knowledge-based bot. That's just putting your articles into context if people ask. And then Pedro's team had upgraded to a custom-built bot that uses coding and plugs directly into the main brain of your CRM and your system. So when somebody specifically comes into it, it's asking who they are and it's pulling information relevant to them. So it can grab them stuff that only they can see. It can tell them things that's only relevant to them. So it's like a big upgraded next level bot of this thing is actually automating things that a human would be doing.
Unique to
even things like submitting your W-9, things like getting certain business information that is related to, like your with your affiliates, or like Aaron said, homework assignments. So it's a way that that you can organize and file things in an automated way also, so you don't have someone who's trying to click and drag attachments and deal with all that.
Love it.
So our final topic is one that Taryn's
You're
gonna
doing so
talk
good with
more
speed.
about.
You're doing so good with speed. I'm so proud of you. We're not on high speed right now. We're not going 3 times the speed on Voxer. Like you
I
did
think
so
last
good.
time we finished at like it was like 11:20, and
27.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm all done.
There's my
So,
content. And we're like, oh man, I hope people got a lot of questions because we just blitzed through that.
yeah, in art school, when I went up for presentations, my teacher would go, the fastest talking artist in the West. And yeah. So something important to keep in mind with your customer support team, they handle a lot. Like they're taking in a lot of the brunt because they are your front lines. And so anything that's wrong with a link, or if someone doesn't like your visionary's face, like they're going to be the ones who are having to answer to that. And on top of that, they're also answering and fielding a lot of your questions about your products. And so as part of that, they end up actually closing a lot of sales for you. And so, I mean, for the most part, you're probably tracking what affiliates, like what other members of your community are getting your product sold for you. Are you doing that for your customer support team? Because they're busting their buns. They're technically not sales. Like they probably have very little or no sales training. They're just trying to, hold your customer's hand, and doing this through Zoom, and doing this through chat, and doing this through email. And so I bet your customer support team is closing a lot more sales than you think they are. And so it's I would argue that it's very important to be tracking their numbers and give them some credit for the amount that they're actually earning your company. So Taryn did something really cool recently for one of our clients to help them track that.
Can I also throw in here another good reason to want to track that is, listen, let's just call it what it is. We're not on the sexy end of the car. You know what I'm saying? Like operations is not the sexy end of the vehicle. We're not marketing. We're not sales. It's very hard to justify when do I need more operations, right? You can almost feel like the CEO cringe when the conversation comes up of like, when are we going to add more operations-based people, customer support fitting that? And when you can show them, no, let me justify why we should offer more customer support, because look at these metrics we've got to show how they're closing, then it becomes a totally different conversation, because then they're actually killing the meat that they're eating. You know what I'm saying? That not just like taking meat off the bone that sales team is knocking down or the marketing's knocking down. No, they're actually contributing. So I think I thought it was such a cool idea that you and Taryn came up with when we talked about this. So I thought it was awesome. So with no further ado.
Well, hello, everybody. Yeah, so all we did was gave them unique order forms to them so that they can put in their macros or have available. So whenever they're talking with people, they're chatting away saying, oh, we're so glad you joined this thing. Have you, our intro backstage, have you had a chance to join the main offer? We see you're really excited about just finding us. Do you want a link to our main product? Whatever it is, they now have their own link they can hand people. And then we can do reporting on the back end and see how many people have bought through that link, what their sales numbers are, how successful they are. And so in turn, they could go and be like, okay, we aren't just supporting customers with problems. We're also enabling them to be, customers. We're also salespeople, which is kind of where the conversation stemmed from, is that they shouldn't just be reactive all the time, but how do they be proactive? How do they be transforming these tickets that is basically a conversation started by the customer or future customer, which is great, because anytime a future customer starts a conversation, that's them engaging in the interaction first. It's not you engaging and waiting for them to engage back.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was empowering them to then, okay, take these interactions to the next level of now let's see if we can help them nurture them into a sale. So there's the solution could be different depending on what programs you're using. Simplest thing is just duplicating what you already have into something separate that can be searched or reported on separately, and then providing that to them. The way we do it is through our order form, automatically applies a promo code behind the scenes without the customer seeing it. So they have their own order forms that have this promo code, and then we run reports based on this promo code and see how well they're doing.
I think it's awesome too, because I mean, what Taryn just said is brilliant and genius in that. I mean, don't let that go to your head. I mean, I know brilliant and genius is a lot of adjectives to describe what you just said. But I will say, what you just said is really smart because, like, realistically, just like Taryn said, there's no better selling environment than when somebody's asking you how they can take a next step with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, sales usually has to harvest those, right? Like they're out there cold calling. They're like, marketing is having to flag those, right? They're trying to, hey, come over here, come and check this out. When you've got somebody on the phone asking you about a pain point that they're experiencing, and you can offer a solution that would benefit the company and benefit them, that's like the best sales experience ever, because all you've done is just turned a question that a lot of times might be like, oh, we get so many questions. Why do we get so many questions? And we can get really negative about it. No, you just twisted it into an opportunity to up level somebody. And then they get off the phone feeling great because you just up leveled what they have. And you get off the phone feeling great because you're like, yes, we just made a sale and I'm going to get credit for it, instead of just like, thanks. Hey, customer experience team, thanks for taking on 250,000 tickets this month. We really appreciate you. Like, it's so much better when you can say, hey, customer experience closed 20 sales this month. Like, and then you can start thinking about how could you create some kind of gamification of that within your customer experience team. Maybe you're going to start commissioning like your customer experience team. Maybe you would do a bonus for the top performer. Maybe you don't want to commission everybody. You just want to do a bonus, like, so that you're not paying everybody out, but you can do some really cool stuff once you have some metrics to drive the car with. But until then, all it literally is a pat on the back. That's all you can really offer your customer experience team. Or you start feeling like, how much money am I still going to have to keep throwing at customer experience? But when you can see, no, they're generating money and I can actually get them to generate more by gamifying, I think there's some really cool stuff you can do with those metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with that, I just will say, like, hug your customer experience team, because they deal with a lot, and they end up being kind of like, they don't end up getting to be in a whole lot of meetings. And a lot of time they feel like they're the last to know, even though they're the first ones to have to communicate. So if you haven't told customer experience you love them today, tell them you love them today, because they're great.
They take on a lot. And I think too, like, I know, Nicole, that you came on in an EA position, and some of the stuff that we talk about on Ops Experts Club, you might be like, I wonder how this applies to me. A lot of the things that we talk about is just to like plant ideas in your brain, like plant like concepts in your mind of how could we make this thing better? Probably nobody's looking at it like you are from your angle, especially if you're at a different seat than maybe customer experience, and to say, hey, I was just in this, and how are we dealing with this? Or you start hearing people complain about common themes, and you're like, I heard something really cool on this, like that somebody was talking about, and then it makes you sound like a badass, like you've been collecting information a bunch of. What does that have to do with you? But I know.
Oh, that's all I do all the time. I just collect information and I just throw it out there.
Because you used to work for attorneys. That's right. You're a smart lady.
Yeah, that's all I do. I just take all that experience from all those times. I just bind it all together and then throw it out there when it's least expected.
I know for Kimberly's team, for Rainmaker's team, Steven, who is the equivalent to a Rohan for you, his EA is actually over customer experience. And she just kind of fell into that. Like, I feel like she just like stumbled, fell off the side of the boat into customer experience and is like managing the whole thing now. And so it's cool, because I think there can be a lot of cool crossover on things where you're like, how's that have to do with me? But then you can end up in a situation that you never thought you'd end up in, but now you've got a bunch of cool answers for it. So